True studenthood and mastery is not about trying to get something, although that happens. It's about trying to connect to the deepest, most quality parts of self and life. It's about you are utterly devoted to your honesty, your integrity, your purity, your commitment to service. It's like, it's those virtues that create what you've created. And anybody that hears this, that listens to you, that wants this for themselves should absolutely positively know that that is the clear path to real lasting success. In my experience, a great coach has is the one who has been through these things and has lived in the business world in whatever context that they've lived in the business world, and they can see that like everything is a matter of the heart at first. And once you get that straight, the strategies fall open easily.
Welcome to the Worth It podcast. I'm Megan Taylor, coach for the brilliant minds and the rare ones who are always growing. I have helped ambitious women and men, business owners and leaders from around the world with defining and expanding their unique work, having the relationship that they actually want, and creating the life that makes all of the work feel worth it. Every week on the podcast, we discuss the key pivots that I coach my clients on and the real work required in order to be a leader and the woman or the man that you're here to be. With that, let's get started. I am so excited. My dear coach, Mr. Craig Gore, is here. Hi, Craig.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. It's my honor.
I'm so excited.
Good. Me too. I'm looking forward to talking to you in this frame, you know?
I know, it's cool. We've never done it before.
Yeah.
So Craig and I have been working together for the last 18 months about and ongoing. Would you share a little bit more about yourself, who you are, where you live, what you do, your magic?
Sure. My name is Craig. My last name is Gore, and I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. I lived in New York or LA for the better part of my adult life. I'm in my mid 50s now, and I'm a professional transformational coach. I live in New Mexico, all the way at the bottom by the Mexican border on a big ranch where it's very, very quiet and there are horses and critters and birds flying around. I do the deepest work with folks, and I do a kind of work that not many folks do. I'm for those who have had quite a bit of experience in, like, for instance, personal development or transformation. And I do work with folks who the typical way of dealing with the challenges that they have in life are not working. And they're usually high achievers and they've got big transitions to make. And they don't want to grind themselves to bits in order to, make the change that they're trying to make, or they're beyond the typical form of help. Therapeutic or professional help is just not touching down to what they need. And so I'm that guy. I'm that guy that helps them.
And you do. Yeah.
Right? I'm
Yeah.
fortunate. I'm fortunate that way. You know how I got there, Megan? A lot of suffering myself. Like
Yeah.
I had a big business in LA, big 7-figure business, high rolling, hard charging, high achiever, like noted in my profession, worked internationally. And I got to the place in my life where it was like, it just wasn't working anymore for me. Just like my moves through my professional life and my relationships were beginning to suffer, and the money was good, but it wasn't fulfilling. It's like those things and me experiencing those things and me transiting those things like has enabled me to help folks like you who have that same experience in life and they just don't know what the hell to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we connected on. Although it was interesting because when we started working together, I didn't even know that about your history, but I could still feel it in
Yeah.
you because I could see how well you understood me. And
Hmm.
we came together at a time where, well, so I had posted something on Facebook, a little color block post that was it was at a time where I was experiencing a lot of executive function challenges where my mind just wasn't working as fast as it used to. I wasn't able to organize my thoughts. And it was actually kind of scary because I was used to being someone who was very successful in life. And it wasn't that I wasn't being successful. I mean, I had replaced my corporate income with the business I had built, but I felt like I was at a capacity. And
Hmm.
as somebody who is a quote unquote high achiever who has big vision and big ambition, it was scary, for me to feel disconnected from my power. And so I posted on Facebook saying, "Hey, what do you all do for optimal brain function?" I was researching neurotropics, functional mushrooms, and I had a lot of clients who had been diagnosed with ADHD or thought they had ADHD and different executive challenges. So I was posting not just on my behalf, but for my clients as well.
Hmm.
And Craig here reached out to me
Hmm.
over Messenger and
Hmm.
said that in your experience that this was an emotional issue that was
Bold
leading to
move, right? It's
bold
like, what
move.
am I doing up in your DMs?
I was like, who is this guy up in my DMs? And, as an
I
introvert,
felt it. I felt it. I needed to say something to you. It's like it felt important.
it felt important and it was, and I'm glad that you did. And, for some reason, I didn't tell you to buzz off.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I felt that there was something there to be explored. And Craig and I ended up in a conversation. He offered me like a no strings attached call. And after talking to him for, I think we were on the phone for about an hour, I
Mm,
noticed everything start to settle and my mind started getting clear. And because I
mm,
noticed how much better I felt just from being in your presence, I was like, okay, there's something here you know? So honestly, it wasn't like a particular piece of content that I read from you. It was being in your presence
mm.
that made me realize the power of what our work would be like and what it has been for the last year and a half we've been going now.
So good. So that prompts a question. May I ask
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I let you know that I was available, or not. And that's the wrong way to say it, but I reached out to you, and
Hmm.
then we connected, and it's like you had some sort of intuitive impulse or sense of connection around. Is that how your clients? It's like, isn't it funny how your clients come to you? It
Yeah.
because sometimes, like, what you may be saying in the world, and they may not respond to it, but they have this personal response to you. Find it. That's how I'll make a lot of connection with the people that I get to serve. Is it the same way with you, or is it like, well, this important piece of content, or what is it for you? How do your clients come your way?
I do have a lot of people who will say, like, wow, I read this one particular post and that's just, it captured so well what I've been trying to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also I get a lot of people who just say, I don't know, I just have this feeling that I need to work with you and I don't know in what capacity, but I just feel drawn to you and I feel connected to you. I had one person who told me they hired me because of the way that I walked into a room,
I
because
love that.
it says something about who I am and how I carry myself. And they were like, I don't know what that is, but I want that. you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
100%. Like, do you find that you're so poised and you're so professional and you know your business so well? It's like, but do you find that the real secret sauce is like kind of inside relationship with you? Like once you begin to talk and once you begin to really share and get to know a person, do you find that's when a lot of the connection and the power starts to
Yeah.
percolate with your people?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think for high achievers, we tend to try and do a lot of problem solving here. And actually,
Hmm.
a lot of the blockage is that a lot of people have just been feeling so unseen for so long. And when we can get into a position of actually being in a relationship and people can feel seen and known in what they're going through in a real way, not only because I've been there, but also because I legitimately care, then people's defenses start melting. It's like it's kind of an
Hmm.
automatic thing that we have because we've been trying to stay safe and protected for so long. And then when their shoulders start dropping and they start opening and they start being honest about how they actually feel, then we can actually get somewhere.
Well said.
My experience.
Is so sounds like to me it's like for you that's where the real power is in relationship where you get intimate with your clients. How does when people start to feel seen in your words, how does that end up impacting their business or their relationships or whatever it is? It's how does it do that?
Uh, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that happens when people feel seen is it starts melting shame, and
Mm,
that's one of the experiences that I had with you is I was really bound up in a lot of self-judgment for
mhm,
where I was.
mhm,
I was still judging myself for being like a divorced woman, like a scarlet letter, like why don't I have a partner and a family of my own yet?
mhm,
Why, why do I have this business that's bringing in all this money, but I don't, everybody's saying like, oh, the golden target is, you know, 20K, 30K, 40K, 50K months, but
mhm,
inside I didn't want to scale the business that I had. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Right? Like, why don't I want to chase the next round of cash? Um,
mhm.
and or just different things that I was judging myself for that were keeping me stuck. And so the more that we talked and the more that the the self-judgment and the shame of feeling how I feel melted off, the more that I became free to start creating a life and a business that I wanted. And it actually took me a long time, not a long, long time, but it was like these micro things. For example, I remember we started working together in February. And in March, I was like, Craig, I don't understand. I know I think I'm supposed to be recording podcast episodes, but I'm having fantasies of going to Mexico next week. And you're like, you better pack your bags and get to Mexico. Like,
All
right?
right. All right.
And so it was these little rebellions and these little um like follow your impulse support that allowed me to get back into touch with my impulse for life and what makes me happy and what I want. And from that frame and from that contact point, I could start building a life, at building relationships, building a business that actually felt good for me and that felt in alignment for me.
So what you're telling me is it's all the effing same. That's what you're telling me.
Well, definitely. It's definitely all the
So
effing same.
you're telling me that you draw no distinction between personal and professional
No, not
anymore.
all. It's all the same thing.
Isn't it funny how you show up? It's like, well, I need better business. So let me talk about business systems and strategies, which are not necessarily the devil or anything, but they don't move unless heart and mind are unified and you're like moving in the right direction within your own life. It's like you're having a hard time brushing your teeth. Not saying you are, but it's like that ends up affecting your business, whether you like it or not.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's like, and people think, well, my relationship with my mom or my dad or my sister or my brother or my husband or my dog or my relationship with money and all that kind of stuff, they think of it through this, well, that's personal. And I'm over here trying to do business. But all of that
It's
stuff
all
that we feel so strongly about, right? It's all stratified in there. And we got to clean that out. And that's what you do, right? With your clients.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and
And then
honestly,
shit starts to move, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my experience, if you look underneath strategy, um, a lot of the same universal laws are actually what originally created the strategy in the first place. So, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, what I mean by that is, for example, lately I've been thinking a lot about how the the steps that we take and the intention, the energy, the values that we infuse into every single moment is what creates the final output, right? So, as an example,
I'm sorry, can you say that again? That's just so awesome.
yeah, well, as an example, if you are moving with fear in the creation of your business as a means to create clients or as a means to create money, you're going to create a fearful experience, in the end, in terms of creating more lack or creating more struggle because you're coming from a place of being in a problem to solve a problem. So,
Is that
right?
like, could I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
Can I ask? It's like, so what's that like? Because it doesn't always sound like fear. What's it like for you? You end up guarding against things, or you know what you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like fear has a very deceptive voice. It sounds good, but it ain't good.
Well, so for example, like, mm, okay, I've been on both sides of the coin with helping CEOs who sometimes need more boundaries and sometimes need less boundaries in their work. And if,
Mhm.
for example, you've had an experience, or if I've had an experience of um, being like run over by clients in some way, let's
Mhm.
say clients
Mhm.
ghosting payments, let's say, right? Then what you
Mhm.
might do in response to that is let's set up a bunch of policies and contracts and a lot of communication up front to prevent that from happening. However, what that does is, it can be done in a good way, where it's like, hey, just so you know, like the way we'll do this is I've got your credit card and it's going to charge on the third or whatever, and you can communicate. But if you lead with fear and you lead with planning for that to fail, right, in the beginning of the relationship, it starts creating a sense of division between you and the client and can create fear at the start of
100%.
the relationship where you're already saying, like, I'm expecting you to maybe bounce. And if you're coming from that place of fear, people end up turning around and doing this in their dating life too. You'll see people who I don't know if
Sabotage.
they sabotage, or they'll get onto their dating profile and they'll be like, I don't want any people who ghost me, in their dating profile because they've been ghosted before. And so what that
Hmm.
does is it's leading with fear, it's leading with lack instead of leading with desire. It ends up actually repelling away people who would
Yeah.
be in alignment with what you actually want if you were to trust that it was actually possible.
So you're like describing all these strategies and systems to guard against failing, right?
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
don't you find out with your clients? It's like they come in and they say, well, I need to strategize this because I don't have this or I don't have that. And if you don't look underneath at all the motives that cause these impulses to want to systematize and strategize, if you don't look at what makes them, transformation can't happen. I know, I mean, and that's what you found. Yeah. It's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
powerful. And it's
Absolutely.
so, to me, in my mind, in my experience, a great coach has is the one who has been through these things and has lived in the business world in whatever in whatever context that they've lived in the business world, and they can see that like everything is a matter of the heart at
Mhm.
first. And once you get that straight, the strategies fall open easily.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it, I mean, it sounds woo, but there's so much money that comes out of heart healing. Like, because if you
100%.
if you think about it, it comes down a lot to being open to receiving. And if in your desire to receive in the past, you didn't get what you wanted or you got hurt and I see a lot of of folks that I work with, and they got hurt at some point and they never really fully addressed it. They just kind of buried it and they keep moving on, not
Mhm.
realizing that something that's so um personal could be affecting their business, but it does.
Here's what's so great about you. I've always found that my success in business was based on a couple of things. The first thing is my willingness to be honest and intimate with those that I did business with.
Mhm.
And second is to be really flipping good at my job. Um, but the power comes in the intimacy that you have with your client, because that's where real change is created. Like you said, they let down. And
Yeah.
the things that come out of feeling alive and invigorated in your life and feeling confident and not being trapped in your past or not
Mhm.
being trapped as a business person, in my former business, really what I found is as I really loved on people and I really produced high quality work concurrent with that, I mean, everything else took care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like if I needed to hire somebody, that happened. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like the strategy flows out of this sort of honest, integrous, authentic living. And that's what's great about you is that's what you're doing in your life each and every day. And I'm sure that impacts the lives of your clients.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I'm not being honest with myself, how can they be? I have to be the example, right, of honesty. And, something that I've really learned with you is, and you have to look carefully because sometimes
Yeah, it hides.
correction or feedback from a client, from a coach like yourself, especially, I mean,
Hmm.
think about it. It's like, okay, sometimes we get really scared of authority. And
Yeah, what are
like,
you trying to say? You trying to say I'm hard on you?
you're very hard on me. I mean, once I could tolerate it, first I was hard on myself and then it kind of flipped and then you started being hard on me. And, like you're like 20 years older than me and I have to
Mhm.
actually really hold myself without crumbling into a ball in order to receive what it is that you're offering and to recognize that even like correction or being like why are you doing that? Like why are we talking about this? It's back again. Like, and you always bring it with so much love and compassion. So I know that it comes with care, but sometimes, correction, especially if you um have any level of wanting to always have it right, or if I have any level of wanting to always have it right, which I did and still do at times, because I'm a very driven student, it can be hard to receive the feedback, and I have to hold myself open in the fire and stand in the fire of what it is that you're trying to tell me in the moments that it is the most uncomfortable. And that is what has actually led to the transformation because the only way I've been able to literally become, I'm so different than I was 18 months ago. I mean, I've always been really strong, but
Mhm.
I am a different, um, I'm like a different lightness in me. And the reason for that is because I allowed myself to be fortified in some of the most difficult conversations.
Hell yes. So now you're talking about what it means to be a great client in the presence of a very powerful, evocative coach who is not afraid to challenge you. Well, and you're that for your client. But
Yeah.
great studenthood, that kind of tenacity that comes with that is what produces powerful transformation. And I continue to want, like, that's one of the things that I want so much for you is, I mean, everybody deserves to have a client like you. You deserve to have clients like yourself who are unflinching in their willingness to continue because the most miraculous things happen, Megan,
Yeah.
when you don't flinch. It hurts. It's painful. It's simple. It's not easy. And hell yeah, it hurts. And yeah, we laugh and yes, it's funny, and yes, it's all the things, and yes, it's beautiful, and yes, you're like family. But the things that arise out of your choice to be deep within yourself and to really look at everything honestly, I mean, that's you did it. And any client that comes to you and and who is available for that level of studenthood and clienthood, great, magnificent, dramatic, wildly transformational things arise out of that kind of commitment. That's powerful coaching.
I mean, I think that's really where the difference is the willingness to stay in the conversation when you're at the edge, you know? I think about like, there were a couple years where I was doing sweat lodges. And I don't know
Hmm.
if you've been in a sweat lodge before, but it gets really freaking hot.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's so uncomfortable. And you have to learn how to hold yourself in the heat. It's funny too, because you're a fire
yeah,
sign.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You know,
yeah, totally.
and you have to realize I have to hold myself and say, I'm okay. I'm not going to die. I can withstand this. I can
Hmm.
continue with this conversation. I can stay in
Hmm.
the heat. And the strength that you get out of realizing how strong you already are is medicine in and of itself. But then the ability to stay at the edge without withdrawing and hiding, that's where the real transformation happens. And sometimes, sorry, go ahead.
It's like I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. It's like great clients want that. Truly great clients come, they pay in full, they stay in the game, and they persist all the way through, and they always want more.
They
That's a
do.
great client. And you know what? You can pick the ones out. Their lives radiate that kind of presence and commitment and power. That's a great client. Not make me feel better. It's not that it's not about feeling better, because yes, it's about feeling better, but they don't come seeking comfort. They come seeking understanding, connection to deeper portions of themselves. They want transformation, and fire is required. And yes, lots of love and care and gentleness. And I'm sorry, can I say that another way? I mean, there's all kinds of things that, and it's like, well, you come sometimes you used to, early on, you used to come wanting to talk about strategy, and I was like, okay, well, we're going to talk about other things first. And it's like the temptation is to default to this other thing. But great clients stay down in the thick of it, and their lives show it. Yours does. Yours
Yeah,
does.
I know. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm still, there are days where I'm like, am I dreaming?
Right.
I'm still catching up to everything that I've created.
Yes, you are. And change is still happening. You know what? I want to say something. This is something that the people who love you or who are thinking about working with you or trying to get closer to you should know about you so that they can know this about themselves. True studenthood and mastery is not about trying to get something, although that happens. It's about trying to connect to the deepest, most quality parts of self and life. It's about you are utterly devoted to your honesty, your integrity, your purity, your commitment to service. It's like, it's those virtues that create what you've created. And anybody that hears this, that listens to you, that wants this for themselves should absolutely positively know that that is the clear path to real lasting success. And it's that integrity that creates that
It
kind of integrity of being.
it does. And I think it's not often talked about because it's harder to do than to
Yeah. And why the
execute.
fuck not? And I'm sorry, excuse my language, but why isn't it created? I mean, why isn't it talked about?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that makes babies and creates marriages and makes beautiful working relationships It brings it brings houses in the right way and money in the right way and impact in the right way and success and growth in the right way. It's like, why will people not address what hurts? Those are the things that make our lives worth living.
The interesting thing about doing that work is when you're living and walking in that way of being in integrity, being honest, being an
Mm,
open-hearted human, not only are you making impact wherever you go, and not only are people magnetized and drawn to you for some inexplicable reason, because deep down
mhm.
they that for themselves, but also as people come and go, or as the money comes and goes, you're free to create what you want without attachment because
Facts.
you already have this deep level of satisfaction from being in life in a good way. I mean, it sounds, go
No,
ahead.
100%. I hear you speaking to the person who already has a lot of success, but they don't feel what they want to feel around all that
Yeah,
stuff.
well, we think that when we have the relationship or we have the money or we have 10 more clients that we're going to feel differently because,
Hmm.
money does bring freedom. Money brings
Hmm.
options. Success brings a feeling of accomplishment.
Hmm.
When we have more clients, we can serve more people. However, if we're doing it at the cost of being out of integrity with ourselves, we can't even fully receive it. It almost feels like a fluke. Like, how did I create this? I'm not even because you're a different person on the inside. Does that make sense?
100%. And
So
the inside and the outside don't match.
exactly. And so when the inside and the outside are matching, not only are you more, call it magnetic to the things that you want and calling in the
Mhm.
people, like, the romantic partnership, the clients, the money that is aligned and a match for who you are, but you can hold it and sustain it because you're not trying to be somebody other than who you are in order to create it in the first place. Right?
100%. It's
Yeah.
like when you came to me, do you mind if I make an observation?
Please go ahead.
It's like when you came to me, it's like, you know, the more we explored what it means for you to experience life as a person, not as a professional, but as a person, as a
Mhm.
woman in the world, as a smart woman in the world, as a powerful woman in the world, who had been disempowered by any number of things that any of us suffer from. Life brings difficulties, struggles of whatever kind. We've all had relationships in our past and or relationships to our past that have difficulty in them. Nobody is without those. But the more we explored, like the deep, intimate, authentic ways, the things that authentically hurt, it's like the better your life got. The more, the more connected to that, the more you're connected to for instance, your womanhood and not having to hold that back because you're in the professional world, right?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think at some level, from the lack of not fully feeling a lot of the things that did hurt, I was shutting down feeling altogether and therefore going more towards business strategy or more towards things that would keep me living up here where it felt safer, right?
Well said.
And the more that we allowed all feelings to exist alongside creating a new life, I'm able
Yeah.
to be a fully functioning, fully living, breathing woman that gets to be connected to my emotions, which are so important for my creative decision making, my
Yeah.
desire to collaborate and welcome more people into my world. It's like if I feel shut down to connection because I had a connection that was painful in the past, that subconsciously is going to keep me from wanting to bring people close, right? Which then impacts
Hmm.
the feeling of the business, for example. So we have to resolve these matters of the heart. But I'll say, in addition to that, something that I really took away from working with you is this idea of like, once we've opened the box and thoroughly explored what's in it, the box from the past, whatever it is, like to not keep going back, but to really fully face forward and to recognize
Yes.
that we're not limited by our past and by the things that we've been through, but we can use that to define new desires and what what is desired to be created, but without it being tainted by the history or some thought that just because XYZ has happened in the past, that it might happen again, for example, which is a very
Love
human
that.
view.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's like you sort of identified, you know, this way of being that kept you safe, you
Mm,
know? Like,
yeah.
what would you call that? Would you call that like the nice girl or the high achieving nice? Like, if you had to name it, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few different faces to it, but basically um, it's almost like a hypervigilance response as a means to making sure bad things don't happen again. And
Hmm.
sometimes I do that by like working really hard or overworking, thinking that if I make something perfect, for example, that it's going to keep something
Okay,
bad.
perfectionism, right? Which is
Perfectionism.
actually super dangerous because it really limits your freedom and the power of your output.
Absolutely. And even just the pleasure of the experience, because I'm actually a super dynamic, super creative, super
Hmm.
like in the flow, spontaneous woman.
Hmm.
That's where a lot of my magic happens. That's a part of the reason why I didn't overly plan this conversation with you, is because I know that when you start putting too much structure and strategy around it, that
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
mutes the magic of what's possible in an organic conversation, right?
Seeing if you're scared all the time, I mean, people don't realize. It's like a lot of people that I know use business as an escape from all the things that really bother them, but you can't get there from that.
Absolutely.
That mindset will not serve you.
Absolutely. And that's a big part of why I transitioned the work that I did, because I was helping all these business owners with scaling their businesses through
Hmm.
COO and operations work, and helping
Hmm.
them, improve the customer experience and attract high level
Hmm.
clients and the
Hmm.
strategic side of business. But I noticed that as a part of that, there was also an aversion and an avoidance of talking about the real things in their life that were
Hmm.
pulling their energy down, that was
Hmm.
keeping them from being able to access their full power to bring to the
Hmm.
business. And so all of the things that we were needing to um, fix in the business were actually personal problems in disguise. And
That's it. That's like the
yeah,
secret to great coaching right there.
it is. And so we have to do both. Um, and so I like to talk about doing like both the spiritual and the practical in tandem, because
Hmm.
have to evolve from the inside before we start rebuilding the business on top of that, in order to create
Hmm.
something that's actually sustainable. And so
Hmm.
I basically started forcing my clients' hands and saying, look, we're not just going to do business anymore. We're also going to talk about like what's really on your mind. And we're going to do both.
Hmm.
And deep down, they were super grateful, because they were like, oh, I didn't realize actually how heavy that was on my spirit. And I was totally just being obsessive about the money and the business and trying to make everything perfect in order to feel better about myself as a coping strategy. And they don't realize it because they're so up against the problem. They're like, all I need is just, to make this my million
More
dollar,
marketing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to feel better. But you
Right.
could be making $1 million and still not feeling fully fulfilled in your life. And then you're in the same place a year later. So it's
I
like,
know it.
right? So it's like we might as well fix the feeling. It's not like fixing the feeling, but it's like address the feeling.
I think that's a great way to say it. Is
Yeah.
like, yeah, put your attention on what hurts because it once that layer is lifted off that you think is not important, or you may not think it's in the way of this other stuff you're doing, you know,
Right.
but I'm telling you, it colors your whole world. It
Well,
absolutely colors your whole world.
it absolutely does. And what I
Yeah.
find for a lot of the clients that I work with is that somebody at some point usually told them to shut up and keep working,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
you know? And
Yeah.
they don't feel permission to actually feel their feelings and acknowledge what they want, because they've learned
Hmm.
hard workers, high performers, to keep their stage face on, to be good girls and good boys, and to do their due diligence and to put themselves second, in the name of family, in the name of success, in the name of whatever. And then they end up feeling bad about the fact that they feel bad. And that's right.
Mhm.
So
I haven't met one client. I have not encountered one client in my practice. They're all high performers that has not had to take a pause from the high performance and address what's underneath to go higher. And
absolutely.
it's like, in fact, I would venture to say that every single one of my clients has given up the need to be a high performer and changed into this quality living across every facet of life. And all jumped, they've all had quantum leaps in their performance as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happened that way for me, like in this past year. Okay, like the
Hmm.
beginning of our work was a lot of inner work stuff. Then it
Hmm.
started picking up speed, and it's like, okay, new house, found Daniel, we're having a
Hmm.
baby. All of
Oh
these
yeah.
things started collecting, going on more
Hmm.
vacations, which I love traveling. So that was a really big deal for me, because I
Hmm.
was always like, oh, I can't go on vacation right now. Um,
your roster refines, people change, better
yeah,
clients come in. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Pay in fulls, clients who stay for a long time, clients who are really hungry for doing the inner work along with improving their leadership and their business and things like this. Like clients who want this higher level work. Also, my health improving. Also,
100%.
I look completely different.
And oh, yes, you do. Holy shit. We didn't even
Yeah,
discuss that. Like your health has
yeah,
radically changed over the
yeah.
last year. I totally,
I know.
I wasn't even thinking.
Yeah.
It has totally, totally, totally changed.
Mhm.
Their great ones come because they're committed to their commitment. That's what you are.
Mhm.
And that it's like the ones that are not committed, that are just trying to get something or kind of rob the universe for stuff, those are not the ones that really
Yeah.
create something beautiful to be lived and expressed in this life. The ones who are committed to their commitments, like committed to self and integrity and their own sovereignty and the good of their families, really quality beings, those are the ones that really make incredible changes in their lives as a result of their commitments.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it stays.
Yeah, and it's funny because I find that oftentimes people come into the world of coaching and they think, well, well, I don't want to do that woo-woo shit. But it doesn't have to be woo-woo. You just need to be able to talk about the things that hurt and like how they might be affecting your life. And you need a chance to like breathe and to feel
Yeah.
something. And it,
Yeah.
it's not some esoteric thing where you gotta like meditate like 42 hours a day and it's like it's not that coaching is only for the spiritual person, and it's not that it's not for people who are not spiritual. It's for people who want to live lives in full integrity to all of the facets of their being,
Absolutely.
and they don't have permission. It's like women, can I have babies and can I do business? Can I be
Right.
married and can I have a traditional style relationship at home, but can I boss people around at the same time? Or, it's like, look, I can know at work, but I don't always want to know at home, or vice versa. I know at home, but I don't always know at work, or whatever the thing is. Men have the same thing. Men have the
Right.
same stuff that they're trying to get through.
And we've created so many rules for how it needs to look. And
Right.
there are endless possibilities, but we have to give ourselves permission to dream. And I think it might sound corny, but like I know we've talked a lot about going into the fire and going into what hurts. And that's been a huge part of our work that's liberated
Hmm.
new energy and new life force to create something new. But then on the other
Yes.
side of that is actually getting really tangible about talking about the possibilities of the future. It's like, what,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so many
Well, cause now you got the bandwidth to do it now because you're not weighed down by all that
I'm
stuff.
not weighed down. So I have the energy, I have something to work with, and also my mind is so sharp that all of my decisions are faster and they're integrated with who I am and where I'm going. So all the decisions that I make are creating more of what I want, right? Because I'm actually operating in alignment with my values and who I want to be. So it's all creating more things that are good. And it doesn't mean that it's not without its challenges, because it is. But now I'm not as scared of challenges because I have so much bandwidth. I have so much trust in myself. I have confidence that I'm going to be able to figure it out. And so I just see the challenges as like another run over the hurdle towards what I know that I'm creating. Because everything that I've desired to create has already manifested so far.
I know. How
So,
cool is that?
yeah. So it's like, well, of course it's going to keep getting better.
Don't you find that you create it without having to run hard at it? It just it unfolds naturally in sequence.
Yeah, it unfolds naturally and in sequence. Although I will say that it's kind of feels like a combination of sometimes things just appear as a gift. Um,
Yeah.
like the perfect house that I wanted, or Daniel,
Mhm.
or right, or a new client referred to me out of nowhere, right? These things
Mhm.
can be gifted. However, I find that they come when I'm rigorously in alignment with myself and where my actions are in alignment with what I want. So,
Oh
it's
yes.
I'm
Oh
not here on my pretty princess pillow waiting for things to be given to me. I work hard every day, but I enjoy working hard because I'm working in the direction of my queendom, of what I'm desiring to create, and doing my best to be that woman every day. And
agreed.
that feels good.
100%.
I think a part of what feels bad for people, you think you feel bad because you don't have the man, or you don't have the woman, or you don't have the money. But what
Mhm.
feels bad is when you're living a life that is incongruent with who you actually are and you're not showing up in your fullest faculties. Like that feels bad.
You said it. I didn't.
And doing that just creates the result of not having what you want. But at the end of the day, it comes back to you. And when you realize that and you take that as a gift and you take ownership of that, then you realize that like the keys to the kingdom are in your hand all the time
100%. 100%.
if you take ownership.
100%.
And if you don't take it personally, which is one other thing I want to touch on with you, is like, one of the things that I've had to do on this journey is to not take it personally and to recognize that a lot of the self-imposed limitations are just certain modes of being that I've picked up for different reasons that I've needed to set down. And
Mhm.
when we attack that, like attack or try to break apart or say like that way of doing things is not working, like Megan, when you overly plan stuff, like you are getting in your own way. I could take that and take it personally, or I could take the advice as what it is and see it as a gift to liberate myself from things that have been holding me back. And the truth is, it's not personal, it's just universal. It's
Correct.
right.
Correct.
Yeah. I, I,
It's
I love
you.
hearing you talk about that. Would you share more about it?
Yeah. So here's how I experience you. I am fearless and direct with you. I'm not mean spirited, but I'm unapologetic in my commitment to what is true. So you and I, we talk about principles, we talk about virtues, we talk about quality living, we talk about what's honest and good and right in your heart. I don't tell you what to think. You have to work that out for yourself. And there are things when we get into these conversations, there are things that come up close to it hurts to confront oneself. I know how it hurts. My support goes, well, are you fully in integrity there? And I'm kind of like, it stings. But when I realize that it's for my growth and that it's a part of universal principle, then I can sort of modulate the hurt that I feel and I can kind of get over myself and move into my learning.
Mhm.
Is that enough of an explanation of like kind of how I see it? It isn't personal. In other words, it's like I get to step into the realm of limitless possibility in myself. And if I use wounds and things to protect myself, it limits me. So I might as well be willing to commit to move through those things. The
Yeah.
brave client does that and they always get what they want. They always get what they want. It may
Mhm.
not look exactly the way that they thought it would. The
Yeah.
timing may be slightly different, but the one who comes showing up saying, Megan, I want to live my best life, full stop, all the way across the board. And I realized that that's important because I need to be fully honest with everything in my life. They get what they want.
Mhm. Why do you think that is?
It's what you said. The in and the out are aligned and
Right.
living according to what is harmonious and good for all things.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Does it sound weird to say it like that? Or
No, no, I understand. I mean, I understand
yeah,
because I've been in the work, you know. And so, how do you know what's good and harmonious for all?
you have to inquire and you have to really learn. And it starts, in my experience, it starts by confronting what hurts because that creates a great deal of confusion and it makes it hard to touch down to laws. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you mean when you talk about laws?
Laws of life. What is good is the only thing that lasts forever. There's a law. There's a law that as you think and feel in your heart, so it becomes to you in your world. That's a law. It also is a law that you're a law unto yourself. In other words, you could be sitting there with a pile of cash and you can be a poor person inside and you've got no contact with the wealth that you already experience.
Right.
So those are examples of laws. Here's
Hmm.
another law. When you touch down to the layers of being that are really important to you, everything in your life gets better. It's a law that integrity means something to life. It's a law. Your life knows when you're trying to cheat,
When you're trying to get,
correct? When you're trying to manipulate things and money out of the universe, you may get it temporarily, but it does not last. That's what I
what
mean by laws.
what do you think that is? Why doesn't it last?
Because there's no way for me to say this without sounding woo woo, but life and intelligence will not support lying.
Hmm.
They're not congruent.
Hmm.
That defeats cheating, defeats life. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It works against life.
Hmm.
And the laws of life need to be universal. In other words, they help everyone.
Hmm.
Is that enough? I mean, it's like
I just like hearing you talk about it.
so the thing is we got to those things like later in our conversation. I don't mean this conversation, but our ongoing conversation. And how you showed up was this. You showed up fully committed to yourself. You thought we needed to talk about one thing. I knew we needed to talk about something else. And you were willing to trust me long enough to let me show you that.
Hmm.
And the client that comes to you should allow for the same thing.
Hmm.
They come wanting more business or a relationship or more quality living, good. And they need to be open to the idea that the conversation may go where they don't expect it to go,
As it should, right?
as it
Because
should.
if you've been focusing on trying to solve the same problem repeatedly and you're still ending up with the same results, you need to change the tracks. You need to
Yeah, and you
change.
got to drop into the unknown to do that.
Exactly. And that's scary for a lot of people. It's a lot easier to keep saying, well, maybe if I just need to change my business model, or, even, sometimes people think, I work with folks in corporate as well, and they think that if they go into a different job that maybe has more alignment with their values, or maybe it's like, oh, I just need a remote job, for example. I don't know, different little tweaks and changes. But if on the inside they're still the same person, they're still going to create the same experience. So, as an example, like, I have a client who she works 8 hours a day, but she finds herself so tired because she's always fielding so many different questions for so many different people and has so many different tasks. And even when she's on lunch, she's still thinking about work and she's never fully resting. So she's basically working nonstop for a full, 8 hours. But then she goes home and she's still thinking about work. So it's actually more than eight, right?
Mhm.
Now, if you could say, well, I just need a company that has better work-life balance principles, for example, or a company where
Right,
my role is like more well-defined and I don't have to wear so many hats.
right.
If on the inside you're still somebody who has these high achiever motives, you're going to find a way to take on more work. You're going to find a way to continue thinking about work so that it feels comfortable and familiar. So um, we have to understand where that comes from to loosen the hold of that kind of motivation, such that you can actually have a different experience.
Well said. And so for me, the best client, it's funny, high achievers, they want to know more because that's where their power is, or so they
Right.
think. But here's what I find is that the one that is willing to to venture into what they don't know, to the unknown, not to gather information, but to step past their current concept of themselves and life, those are the ones that create the change that they want to make.
Well, 1,000%. And I think a part of why this type of work requires long-term commitment, which is what I've done with you and many of my clients do as well, but not all of them. Sometimes we think that we've gotten all the way down into it because you've done enough work to create a new level of understanding about these are my challenges, right? A therapist could tell you that as well. Like, hey, just so you know, these things are probably going to show up in your relationships, for example. However, until you've actually done something about it and you've actually stepped off the tracks of the old way of being and into the unknown and then into the new, all you have is awareness, and you might be more conscious about certain things like, oh, I know I tend to overwork sometimes and that gets in the way of my relationships, for example. But until you actually transform that inside of yourself, it still exists.
Very well said.
And so that's why, okay, doing like 3 months of work together, for example, you can get a lot done and
Hmm.
you can create significant transformation. But
Hmm.
if you want it to truly touch every corner of your life, if you really want to sweep everything clean, if you really want to transform into an actually radically different person and have radically different results, it takes time. And I know with you, I thought I was at the end of it by year one. And, and then more came. And actually, that's when it started getting really fun. Was It's kind of like in the first year, it was a huge clean out.
Yeah,
And
like wet work. I call that
yeah,
wet work. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then in year two, we were like, okay, but what do we want to create now with all this capacity and all of this new way of being? And how can you enjoy what you've created? How can you be even more in the magic? And that's been kind of the theme of the second year that I've been in.
100%. And you were
So,
smart enough to know you hired me but you hired me, you decided you were going to hire me for 3 weeks and we were together for like, what, 4 or 5 weeks? And you're like, how do we do this for a year?
yeah, which I had never done before. We were in like our 6th week, and I said, "Hey, what's your fee for a year?"
Right.
I reached out to you and asked you for it. I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, I need more, and I I like making big commitments.
That's that's the ones that come to you. That's a good thing. If they identify that in themselves, I like making big commitments. I like high stakes commitments. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like those are the ones that are really going to benefit
yeah.
from with Megan because and those are where titanic changes are made in
Hmm.
those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's no running from that, right? Once you've like made a commitment, I mean, you can, I guess you could pay for stuff and just not show up,
it hurts.
but yeah, there have been times where where I didn't want to maybe didn't want to talk to you for a minute because I was like, this hurts, this sucks. Why won't you hold my feelings? You know, and I had to grow in my own capacity to deal with like really, really hard stuff and stay in the conversation, but while also holding myself through the process. And it takes time to build those muscles and build that resilience. Well, I've always been resilient. I'm very resilient, but
You're
uh,
tenacious. You're tenacious.
I'm tenacious. I'm super tenacious. Um, and to have enough life examples pop up that let me see recurring patterns over time
Mhm.
that I could continue to see, okay, this is how I can be powerful in this type of um, in my business, with my family, in my relationship, and to realize how much power I truly have to influence my reality. I mean, my relationships, Craig, like have transformed so much
Yeah,
in every single relationship that I have, and my relationships are probably what give me the most meaning in life,
mhm.
other than like my connection to like my spiritual journey and my spiritual path and my love for learning and growth and
Mhm.
things. My relationships are super important to me, including with my clients. And so my ability to grow as a leader, my ability to grow as a woman, my ability to create relationships that are honest, that are deep, that are full of love, that are full of new possibility has been the biggest gift to me.
That's,
And
I love hearing that.
yeah, and it took like truly resolving my relationship with myself before I was fully available for doing that in every
That's
other
where,
relationship in my life.
that's where it all starts. I'm sorry, step on your words. Didn't mean to. But it's like it's the first thing. Find out all about you. Turn towards yourself and find out. You don't have to look out to continue to make an impact. That's step one. Step two, shine your light. Be a city on a hill happens naturally when you investigate your own self and can commit to it. Then third, then you get all the stuff you want.
Exactly.
And the funny thing is it kind of stops mattering, like you said. It
Yeah.
stops mattering, but still, it's still good to have the stuff that you want.
Exactly. But we have to like pause the obsession with whatever we've been concerned with first. We have to pause the obsession with the money or, with how your family's showing up or with how, whether your husband's giving you what you want or not what you want, and to take your eyes off of that hyperfixation, whatever it is that you've been trying to fix, right? Or
That's
maybe
right.
it's like, why does my boss, treat me like this? Why is the work environment set up this way? And you try to fight the system instead of looking at the system that's inside you,
That's
right?
it. And as you remedy and heal and investigate that, the problems outside dissolve.
Right. And then you can show up and actually come back and influence the systems in a different kind of way.
100% true. 100% true. One, it's like a certain iteration of a business like it grows another facet. And now there's your money maker. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah, I
yeah,
know. You haven't seen it yet, but I just posted on Facebook asking how many people would be interested in a course that blends partner dancing and personal development to have better relationships, to
let's go.
learn how to lead and follow. And it's like one part of me could be like, Megan, that's so like out of left field, but I've actually been thinking about it for like 5, 6, 7 years. Um, And
It's a
I
good thing.
forget how I got on this tangent, but like I think the point is sometimes we have to let go of how we think that it should look, and
That's
all
right.
of a sudden we start getting creative about creating brand new pathways to love or to money that we would never would have even allowed ourselves to consider before.
I mean, isn't that the point? Can I say a
Yeah.
little? No, I know we're running out of time, but can I say a
Yeah.
little? So there, there's something I want to say. It's like, some people come really early to the game. Now, anybody can embrace transformation in their lives at
Yeah.
whatever age. But one of the things that I want to say about you is like, um, you, you may be a bit of an outlier in terms of just how deeply you've gone into this work at this point in your experience, and you're already like super duper mature. So it's like, I guess I want to speak to the ones in the world. It's like transformation doesn't really know any age. It's
Hmm.
all about connecting with the right person. And I really see you like being able to have an impact on those that may have had more sort of experience in years than you. But these are the problems, these are advanced problems. Like they're problems of maturity. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like moms and dads and professional people that have worked their whole lives a certain way, and it's just not tenable anymore. They need to they need a change. That's just
Absolutely.
something I want to acknowledge out loud. It's like, look, a great coach, people, is a great coach. It
Thank you.
doesn't, you're welcome. I
Yeah.
hope that's clear how that's
Yeah.
come across.
And people often people often don't know how old I am at all.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, truly this I had my wake up 10 years ago, realizing my life wasn't working and giving me the fulfillment I thought that it would when I had, you know, the husband and was earning over six figures and a super high profile, well respected, hard earned career. And I
Hmm.
was like, why do I feel so depleted on the inside? And I woke up to that 10 years ago, you know.
Way to
So
go, girl.
this has been a long journey and
Hmm.
with many mentors, a lot of spiritual searching, a little bit of plant medicine, a
Yeah,
lot of travel, and also, being a business owner will show you everything that all the areas that you're being invited
powerful
to.
mirror. Yeah,
Powerful mirror and showing up and doing that. Um, and I'd say the most important thing to shorten the trajectory of your searching is to get with somebody that you feel deeply seen by, that you feel safe with, to be fully honest,
hmm,
as I did with you, and where you really come ready to put it all on the line.
yeah. That's a great client.
Yeah.
And the great coach does the same. And a powerful coach, it's not possible to be a powerful coach without being a committed student.
Hmm.
And anybody that's smart will see that that's the case.
Hmm.
So it's like when folks hear this, it's like, are if you want something deep from your life and you are ready to commit, there's powerful help available
Yes.
with like-minded individuals who have made the decision that you need to make for yourself and
Yes.
have walked this journey and who are prepared to be with you, and they are not afraid.
Yeah. Exactly.
This whole like shine you up like style of coaching, that does not work. This that you're attending to and the kind of studenthood that you demonstrate in your life, that's what the world needs from you. It's what you're already showing us.
Mm, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you and I both call in a lot of powerful people, people with, who've been high profile, people who have powerful, strong personalities.
Mhm.
It's like, I think that's beautiful. And we don't need, like, you and I are people who have the capacity to hold bigness. And I think for the one who's afraid that they're too much for a coach to handle,
I love that you said that. That's
you
so,
know,
yes. Yeah.
yeah, like you're not too much to handle. Your challenges are not too much to handle. Your personality, your bigness. Like the point is to make it bigger, but also oriented in the right direction. And so, um, bring the bigness, and I just keep getting bigger. Craig. We're going to the moon.
I love that. I
I hope
love
you're ready.
that. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. More
Oh,
proof.
good. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up? Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. I'm honored to be here. I love you. And I'm so honored that you asked me. And it's like those that are listening, if something inside is tugging, they should make a step in your direction and they should ask for like the full Monty because life gets great that way.
It does. And sometimes when you're not sure, it just starts with a conversation, similar to what you and I had. It's like, I don't know about this. What is this? Let's
Yeah,
find out.
totally great point. It's just like come a little closer.
A
It's
little
like
closer.
let's talk about this. Yeah,
Yeah. And then we find out really quick.
didn't
We find
we?
we find out real quick. Yeah. So
You remember Aspen? I mean, good Lord, doesn't it
yeah.
feel like it was like 5 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. When I first signed on and Craig was in Aspen, and I love a good road trip, and we wanted to do some in-person work together. So I jumped in the car and road tripped to Aspen, and
Aspen.
we met our first intensive together, and then saw you again in California. Um, and I've seen you a handful of other times. Saw you in Salt Lake and
Boise.
Boise, and we've had the in-person time has definitely augmented our work, and that's one of the other things I love about committing to long-term coaching is including that in-person time that we get to have together. It just like lights everything on fire, and so
The ones that get to be in your presence, they get to benefit the same way you've benefited from being in your coach's presence. I'm so excited for those who really mean it to step in and to get all in. And if they're just brave enough, it just starts with a conversation. It just starts with a conversation. It doesn't have to hurt.
yeah. Right. No, it doesn't have to
That,
hurt you.
that comes a little bit later. I know you're
Yeah,
laughing. I
no,
like,
no. I make it really nice in the beginning.
it doesn't have to hurt yet. We're just getting to
Yeah, yeah.
know each other.
So I'll come pet your hair and make you feel better for a second before we get into the
Yeah,
business. You
yeah.
know, good service is meant to feel good, and you've been such a blessing in my life, Craig. Um, I'll start crying if I talk further about it, but you've been such a blessing in my life, not only transforming my life, but making me feel just so well loved
Mm,
and to be a demonstration of what I get to be to myself and to my clients as well. And thank you for these changes as well that I now get to bring, to my budding family. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's been
Oh,
massive.
super, super proud to be here. And thank you. And I love you back.
Me too.
Okay.
We won't have to do a part two.
Sure. I'm
This was
ready. Sign me up.
thanks, Craig.
Okay.
Hi, lovely. Really quick before you go, it would mean the absolute world to me if you found value in today's episode, if you would take a minute to leave a 5-star review for the podcast. This is going to help other powerhouses like you to be able to find it. Also, I love interacting with my listeners, so I would love to know more about what you thought about today's episode. If you take a screenshot and share it to your Instagram stories and tag at Megan W. Taylor, it's going to notify me, and I actually love to reshare your posts with my audience as well. With that, thank you so much for being a listener, and I am wishing you a beautiful, productive, happy, sexy, lucrative week, and I will see you on the next episode.